Shalom and welcome to another edition of Parasha Talk. I'm Rabbi Elliot Malamet in Highland Park, New Jersey, the Highland Park Conservative Temple Congregation on Shemet. And joining me, my good friends, Rabbi Barry Chesler, Solomon Schechter, Day School, Long Island, Rabbi Jeremy Kalmanovsky, Anshe Chesed, New York City. We are recording this. It's now day 110, 111 of the war. We are praying for the return of the hostages. Very difficult days. We've said this every week as we have started this year, basically this new year of the Torah reading. Our minds, our thoughts, our prayers are with the hostages and their families and with the soldiers of the IDF. May God protect them, bring them all home soon and safely. We're talking about Parashat Beshalah this week, really one of the critical parshas in the Torah, because this is I guess you could say this is the climactic moment of the Exodus, where they finally put Egypt behind them. They, spoiler alert, they make it to the Sea of Reeds, and they cross through the Sea of Reeds. Yam Suf, they make it to the other side, and so there is a body of water, a boundary that will separate Israel from Egypt, and it will be final. That is to say, their coming out of Egypt will have been completed. And the scene is filled with drama, with tension. I want to do this as a kind of anatomy of a scene. A few critical verses in chapter 14 before the splitting of the sea, where the people are discovering that Pharaoh and the chariots are surrounding them. They've caught up with them. Pharaoh has had a change of heart. He wants to come and get them back. He's chasing after them, and the people see this. And I'm going to pick it up from chapter 14, verse 10. Pharaoh hikriv. Pharaoh is getting closer. Israel is looking upwards. And Egypt is coming after them. They are scared. They scream El Adonai, to God. Vayomru El Moshe. Then they turn to Moshe. Where was it for a lack of graves in Egypt that you took us to die in the desert? Mazot asita lanu. What did you do to us, to take us out of Egypt? This is the thing that we told you in Egypt, saying, we'll keep working, we'll keep being slaves in Egypt. It's better for us to be slaves in Egypt, to die in the desert.
So,
okay,
listening
right
to you read this passage, it strikes me that the critical part of it are the words that are missing, because they first cry out to God, and the Torah doesn't tell us, but I think it's absolutely true. God does not answer. And so now they yell at Moses.
All right, so let's go
They feel themselves abandoned by God. And if they're abandoned by God, they may as well be back in Egypt.
So, all right, so then Moses turns to them and says, Al tira'u, do not be afraid. Hityatzvu, stand up. Ura'u et Yeshuat Adonai, look at the salvation of God. Asher yaseh lachem hayom, that he will do for you today. Ki asher ritem et Mitzrayim hayom, because you have seen Egypt today. Lo tosifu lirotam od olam, od ad olam. You're never going to see them again. Adonai yelachem lachem, vatem tacharishun. So God is going to wage war for you. Now be quiet.
Right. But I just have to add here that it's easy for Moses to say, because he has an intimate and direct relationship with God.
All right.
It doesn't necessarily help the Israelites who do not.
So here's what I want to do. I want to go, let's go around the characters here, okay? And I want to try and get into the mindset of the different units or the characters. We have here the people of Israel, we have God, we have Moses, we have Pharaoh. Pharaoh may be the easiest one to deal with, to set aside. This character, what is motivating Pharaoh? What's driving Pharaoh here, if you will?
I think
Well,
Pharaoh is Captain Ahab.
okay.
He's obsessed. He sees his world crumbling before him because the key to his success has been the enslavement of the Israelites.
I would go with humiliation. That he's, I mean, I agree with you, but I would say that there's a layer of humiliation. He's been duped. He's been tricked. If we follow that theme from previous weeks, where this is there was a setup here, and they left, and it wasn't exactly clear what the conditions were going to be. They wanted to leave. They said they wanted to worship, and he's coming after them, and he's having a change of heart, and the change of heart is rooted in humiliation. And I mean, humiliation is a great motivator of human behavior, right? I mean, I don't know what you
Yeah,
think, Jeremy.
yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, we talked beforehand about the Hami Bli'en Kvarim was the lack of graves in Egypt. And people say, Ma asita lanu, Mazot asita lanu. Pharaoh also says, well, what have you done? Mazot asinu ki shilachnu et Yisrael me'ovdenu.
Shilachtim.
What were we thinking when we released all these juicy slaves? So we are mighty enough to get them back. I mean, and avenging humiliation. I mean, in political life, I think we can see lots of examples
Lots of examples.
that a pie in the face is certainly a motivator for people to just take no prisoners and never ever forget a grudge. And so Pharaoh is like, I just got my butt kicked. I gotta get back in the fight.
Yeah. I mean, there's a sense that this is a driver for him, that there is humiliation, there's a sense that power, all of his power is going to be lost. And he's waging a war now against the God of Israel, who he really doesn't know, and who he thinks is like all the other local gods, local or people's gods that he could vanquish. Because after all, Egypt in the Bible, in the biblical imagination, is power, power and wealth and
And power.
ruthlessness.
But
And yeah,
just thinking about um, the the uh, the multiple different calculations. I mean, part of what's going on for Israel right now. Obviously, I'm on the side of those who hope that Hamas is militarily destroyed, and we also have to take into consideration the enormous diminishment of the what's that word, the deterrent capacity of Tzahal. Like
yes,
Tsahal's deterrent capacity to scare the pants off its enemies has distinctly been damaged. So you
right.
can see Pharaoh having the same conversation with his Khartoumei Mitzrayim. It's like, oh my God, every runty group of slaves think that they can stand up to Pharaoh now. We better put an end to this.
I think that this is one of the narratives of the current conflict, which is that they never expected this. They were duped, um, and there's tremendous humiliation in that, and it's bitter, bitter, and it's also painful because it costs so many lives. I mean, it's now 1,200 people killed plus another 200 and something soldiers, and it's it's deeply, deeply painful, in the truest sense of the word. Barry, you want to? Or no, no. So okay. So we have Pharaoh with the sense of humility. Let's turn to the people of Israel, um, and I want to try and leap with empathy into their lives, and I want to tee it up by saying they've been behaving so beautifully up until now. They they went out of Egypt without a peep. Not a word was said. They did everything that they were supposed to do, and more so. I think they left on an empty stomach, and I think they baked their bread the following day. I think they managed. I think they took a sigh of relief, once they left. But now they're being chased. The water's in front of them. They say this statement. I want to say, on the one hand, it's actually funny. Okay, I mean, if we're not for lack of graves in Egypt, that you took us in Egypt. I think that there's the ground zero of Jewish humor there, but it's also searing. It's it's just piercing in terms of it's ironic, sarcastic, bombastic annoyingness. I mean, and on the one hand, I wish they would have said something else. On the other hand, what else was there for them to say? And how would you?
You first of all, I want to note that when you said it's searing,
Yes.
Siri on my phone just woke up.
Oh my God.
I gotta move this phone.
Baruch Shekivanta.
Exactly. So, how would you characterize
you gotta
the
read verse 12. Go to read verse 12, because verse 11, as you said, it's got a snarky humor, but verse 12 really nails it to the wall.
This is the thing we told you.
So maybe they haven't been. Go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting.
We stop. We should still be working in Egypt.
So it's better we should be slaves in Egypt and serve the Egyptians rather than die in the wilderness. First of all, so maybe verse 12 indicates that they haven't been behaving so well until now. We haven't really seen it. The people have said, Moses, you made it worse for us, but then the plagues started coming, and we can imagine the people gathering some strength. But verse 12 suggests that we said to you back in Egypt, we didn't really want to do this. And I think throughout the entire Torah, here in Shmot and in Bamidbar, Leviticus doesn't really have these conversations, and Deuteronomy doesn't either. But in Exodus and Numbers, the thing that is guaranteed to enrage God is to say, I want to go back to Egypt and be a slave. I want
because
to go
it
back.
negates the entire ethos of the whole Torah.
Exactly.
Right. And so, but I wouldn't even go further, which is to say, we've talked about this in previous sessions where, the at the end of the Torah, choose life. And of course, we have a long association with that. Remember teaching back in the old days where we said, be a blessing, be holy, choose life. These are the three major statements in the Torah, if you make it as a theme. And in some way, what they say here goes against the entire ethos of the whole Torah, because they're not saying we choose death, right? They're saying no. We don't want to die here in the desert. We want to go back and live as slaves. And so, the ironic reading of this is, well, if to live as a slave is to live as a dead person. So you're choosing death, really.
Yeah. I want to.
Well, no, I think that you're a little bit harsh.
I'm a harsh.
I think that the people are going between a feeling of helplessness and hopelessness. And, we, I think, have this image of Moses perhaps as Charlton Heston. And there would be good reason for having that image. But the Moses that the Israelites knew was not this great figure. He was this shepherd who had access to God. But Moses himself doesn't really do all that much. And now imagine the scene. You've been walking all day and you hear this noise. You turn around and you see the dust clouds of chariots. And at best, you have foot soldiers who don't know how to fight.
Yeah.
So where is the strength to think that, oh yeah, this is no problem for Moses and our God? It is a problem. We're outmatched, and God has not answered us, and Moses is a shepherd. He's not a general.
You have a lot of empathy for the slaves, for the Israelites there. You're saying, I don't blame them. I don't blame them for feeling what they're feeling.
Yes, I think we have to have, and let's face it, were we back there, we would be with Bnei Israel. We would not be Moshe.
Okay, well, I'm going to turn to you.
Let's not leave this for one thing. I want to quote you a great passage by Nachmanides, the biblical commentator. He's paraphrasing a midrash. In the next verse, when Moses says to people, "Don't be afraid, stand still. God will save you. And as you have seen the Egyptians today, you will never see them again." So Ramban quotes a passage in the Mechilta that says, "You will never see them again," is not a prophecy of salvation. It is a normative mitzvah. What does that mean? We always want to, I think, in my humble opinion as an interpreter of this religion, it's not only a sort of a story that is told, it is a story that produces a behavior, a normative behavior. And so it becomes a mitzvah never to see the Egyptians again. God commands them that you will never again want to see them as the source of your strength. Where does it appear in the Torah? In Deuteronomy, where it says in Deuteronomy 17, it says, watch out when you get a king, because the king is going to want more wealth and he's going to want more horses and he's going to take you back to Egypt to get those things. By the way, that is apparently true of the Bible's picture of Solomon, that
Yes.
Solomon aligns with Egypt to get wealth, to get horses. And Ramban closes this comment on our verse here, Exodus 14:13, with, I think, a very powerful statement. Shehi mitzvah be'emet lo habtacha. This is not a promise that it's going to be okay. This is a commandment that I am giving you, not to look to Egypt again as the source of care and it might be sucky, but they feed you, and there's the Nile, and there's the fish, and there's the good food. And no, you must. This is like instantiating what Elliot was saying before, that the people in their fear also need a mitzvah to be courageous enough that they don't look to Egypt as the source of their life, because it's not the source of life, it's the source of death. And even though the desert journey is going to be scary, you guys gotta tie it on and walk into it.
All right. So to continue with the strategy here of reading the text. So we have Pharaoh, humiliation and frustration, obsession. We have the people of Israel who are exasperated, but also
beaten down
and
trampled upon,
exhaustion. And we have let's try and understand Moses now. So Moses, they're yelling at Moses. Okay, they say, "Kitov lanu avodah Mitzrayim umutenu b'mispar." It's better that we would have worked in Egypt than that we die in Egypt and die here in the desert. I'll go back one verse. Mazot asita lanu. They ask him, "What did you do to us?" Okay, and then Moses says, God will fight for you. Be strong. God will fight for you, and be quiet. Okay, I'm going to withhold criticism here of Moses, and ask you to try and get into his head. What's going through his mind here?
I think that Kivyachol, this is a kind of projection. This is Moses putting into the words of Israelites his own words. He is actually yelling at God, addressing God, because this is not the deal that Moses signed up for either. The deal that Moses signed up for was to take the Israelites out of Egypt. And that was going to be the end.
Yeah.
They're out of Egypt, and now there's more impossible situations. And so, in the words attributed to the Israelites, I hear Moses saying to God, "What have you done to us? And what have you done for us when we need you right now?"
So you really think that embedded in what Moses is saying to the people is really a critique of God, or really it's not a critique, but a cry?
I think that underlying everything, something I've been thinking about these last several years, is that God never appears the way that we want him to.
Yeah.
But when we read the Torah, we think that he does. But in actuality, he doesn't. And it's always difficult because, first, God is invisible. That's problem number one. And if you ever saw The Prestige, great movie, magic is not making something disappear, it's making it reappear again. And God doesn't reappear all that often. And I think it's an existential problem. We want God to be in our lives to whatever extent, but we don't get that. And we don't quite know how to get it.
does God have a purpose here in really giving this anguish? I mean, this is a moment of real anguish for the
I don't
people.
think he's sitting or whatever,
He's not capricious about
meditating, saying it's time to stick it to the Israelites. This is just how God is.
it. Okay. So then God, any more comments about Moses and what the feeling of Moses is, what the frustration or what, I like the idea. This is not what I signed up for. I had a different, everybody has a different picture of what was supposed to happen. And nothing happens here according to what we think it's supposed to happen. I think.
So, I mean, again, you have to remember Moses the shepherd. He's thinking, I know sheep, but this people,
So, by the time I ever knew him, he was very, very sick, and though I was in a class with him, I didn't really get a lot out of Yochanan Mufs, but he was my congregant, and I did his funeral, and his wife Yocheved was, very, very big in our community. We just had her yard site a couple of days ago. Yochanan's article about prophecy, biblical prophecy, says, listen, there's so many different images of the biblical prophet. We have the literary prophets, and they tell these great speeches and they inspire vision of society. And we have sort of the law-giving prophets, and we have the people who work, giving oracles or whatever. And then you have, like he says, Elijah and Elisha and some of Moshe is like this wonder worker who doesn't have any moral content to what they want to say. Like some of the stories that we get out of Moshe, and in the course of this parsha, we're going to get the one where he hits the rock, the first time that he hits the rock. The one that happens in Bamidbar, he's not supposed to hit it, but in Exodus he's supposed to hit it, and Yochanan writes in that article that one way to think about what people ask, what people expect, and then of course he goes on to say that, and over time he becomes Moshe Rabbeinu, the intellectual who studies Torah in Jewish tradition. But I think that one of the stories about Moshe, and Elliot, you were saying something about this from another book you were reading before we started recording, is that there's this guy who does these miracles, and he knows how to find the water in the desert, and he knows how to sweeten the bitter water, which will also happen in our parasha, and he makes the food appear out of nowhere.
Mythological figure.
He's a mythological figure. So I can't really answer the fully rounded character of Moshe as texts develop, as religion develops, is more than the magic man who knows how to find the water in the desert. But I think part of the story that's going on here is that he's got certain kind of special powers, and so I'm going to maybe tilt against the I'm going to tilt against the I didn't sign up for this thing. I'm going to read some of these passages through the magic man quality, and think that Moses does represent to the people someone who's kind of supernatural. And if we can then turn to like maybe, because the story as we have received it isn't just a magic trick. Maybe the bit on the hitting the rock and getting the water is a bit of a magic trick, but the story that we have is fully rounded story. It involves moral content and involves theological content. And my favorite verse is after Moses gives that little speech, you'll never see them again, hold your peace, God will fight for you. Then God says to Adonai Moshe, Ma titzak elai. What are you yelling at me for? Daber al bnei Yisrael v'yisau, talk to the children and tell them to start marching. To me, part of this story is, yeah, God does this amazing miracle, leads them across the sea. Part of the story is God cultivating in Moshe as an individual and the people as a group that they are also empowered. They are not helpless.
Well, so let me ask you this question: what is God's motivation in saying that? Is he saying it? What's the music behind it? What's the tone? Is he saying it in frustration, or is he saying it in look?
no,
Here's what you got to do. Here's what you got to do. Go ahead.
I think he's clarifying a major point of religion. And we all know people who want to retreat and pray all day. And Rashi's comment on this verse is that it's not always appropriate to pray. Sometimes you have to act.
Yeah.
And that is a critical lesson in religion, because a lot of times religion seems to be about withdrawal from the world when it's supposed to be about engagement. There's a great statement, I think, attributed to the Baal Shem Tov, among others, that you cannot depend upon a miracle when you have something you can do. And you have to be able to act. And Moses, at least the way Rashi, following I assume, the Midrash, says that Moses, thought it was time to daven. But no, it's not time to daven.
So again, this is a text that can leave us very confused. It leaves me very confused because on the one hand,
Read Rambam,
yeah,
the guide to the confused.
exactly. So on the one hand, God, Moses says, Adonai Yelachem Lachem, God is gonna fight. And then in a chapter, we're gonna get this whole big song that praises God, really to the point, Adonai Ish Milchama, Adonai Shemo, Markavot Paro V'chelo Yeravayam, God is a man of war. God hurled the chariots of Pharaoh into the sea, and a lot of this is attributed to God. The victory at the sea is attributed to God, and what God is saying to Moses is, "Daber al bnei Israel v'yisau," speak to them and go, which is like go into the sea, walk into the sea, and it's God saying, do the impossible, do what seems to be irrational.
This is why, Vayru b'toch hayam bayavasha. They walked in the midst of the sea on dry land. That kind of, venture against the absurd. That's a piece of religion too. Overall, I'm with Barry that this is an affirmation of human divine partnership. This is, after all, a religion of Brit. We have a covenant. You do some stuff, we'll do some stuff, and together we'll work and we'll see what we can't make this place better. And that's, I think, the main theme. But there is also like some of this, rage against the absurd. Walk in the midst of the ocean, and for you it's dry land.
Yeah. But it's okay. Matcha, lift up your staff, unete et yadcha, cast your hand al hayam uvikaehu, and split it. Right? Moses is used to doing miracles. He's used to creating plagues. He's turned his staff into a snake. He's turned water into blood. He's gotten frogs, etc., etc. This is new, but all the other ones were new. Some would say that this is an 11th plague, or simply a miracle to split the sea. Vayavo b'nei Yisrael b'toch hayam bayabasha. And I mean, there's a moment there where if you were Moses, you'd say, "Excuse me, I don't understand. You want me to do what? You want me to do what?" Or is Moses going to say, "Okay, God, you said this to me, and therefore it's going to happen." Um, and in fact, the winds are gathered, and Moses in verse 21, Vayet Moshe et yado al hayam, he casts his hand over the sea. Vayolech Adonai et hayam. God moves the sea. Beruach kadim aza kol halayl, in a strong wind all night. Vayasem et hayam lecharava, and he makes the sea into dry land. Vayibaku amayim, and the waters split. It's breathtaking. It's amazing. Yeah.
So there's a subtext here that's worth exploring, I think. And the question that the passage poses is, can Moshe do anything without God? He is the conduit of the miracles. And, I was trying to think, the only thing that comes to mind immediately that Moses did without God was breaking the luchot, the tablets. Even his death was at the hand of God. And I think that for someone of a certain spiritual mindset, this can be debilitating, because it raises for Moses, I think, an issue of his own self-worth. Who is Moses? Is Moses a person who has his own identity, or is he a person immersed in God's identity?
I feel like, there's that there is the breaking of the tablets to which God says, midrashically, "Aluchot asher shibarta yasher koach asher shibarta." Well done. And there's other the dates of the revelation are confusing. He's on top of the mountain, he's at the bottom of the mountain, he's at the top of the mountain, and I forget exactly how it works, but the midrash says, or where maybe the Gemara, whatever. Moshe hosif od yom mida'ato v'hiskim dat hamakom l'dato shel Moshe. Moses said, "We got to slow this down. Let's delay by one day." And God says, "Oh, yes, well done." I think that the rabbinic, the Moshe Rabbeinu, not the guy who knows the water in the desert, but the guy who knows how to study Torah, is ultimately, yes, capable of being a partner. So I think that I'm not using this to describe any given scene in the Torah, but in Judaism, I think Moshe is powerful apart from just being a tool in God's hands, and adequate, intellectually adequate, morally adequate to argue with God and to come up with some stuff on his own, and that I think is like a hallmark of rabbinic Judaism.
So we have to bring this to a conclusion. It's a very complicated story. It's a complicated story from all the characters and the different kinds of ways that we can interpret them, and the chaos, the confusion, and the total fear that the people have. Jeremy, pull out that midrash for us, just to kind of.
Another midrash. This is from the collection known as the Mechilta, which is like a roughly Mishnaic era, so end of the second, early third century, verse by verse exposition of the book of Exodus. And the midrash, which is part of a little bit of a longer thing, goes like this: Arba kitot ne'esu Yisrael al yam. Israel broke into 4 factions at the sea. Achat omeret, one says, lipol al yam, let's just jump in the sea and commit suicide. Achat omeret, one says, lashuv mitzrayim. All right, they caught us. We're going to go back and meekly become slaves again. Achat omeret lasot milchama kenegdan. One group says, let's fight. Might be a suicide mission, but we got to do what we can. V'chat omeret nitzaveach kenegdan. Let's scream before them. It's possible that it means scream at the Egyptians and maybe try to intimidate them, but I think it means pray to God. And if that's the case, then Moses's speech is sort of directed at each of those groups. But what I think the vibe is something like this. You're in huge crisis. We know that how it's going to end, but they don't know how it's going to end. And so some people are just surrender to despair in 2 different varieties: commit suicide or allow yourself to be retaken to slavery. And some people say, let's go to war, futile though that may be. And some people say, let's let God try to fix it for us. And none of those are the right answer, right? That it does require the brit and the partnership of people walking, people marching, people showing faith, and trying to head forward. And I come away with that with real spiritual resources for dealing with life and all of its difficulties.
Yeah, it's such a remarkable midrash, in the sense that there's so many different ways that we can encounter horrific events or events that really scare us. And I think it speaks to a truth in human reactions and human behaviors. I wonder if there's only 4. I wonder, 4 is a useful frame that the rabbis have in many texts like this. And
well, it's a typology, because we have the Arba Minim, the 4 species that.
That's right. It's a typology, and it fits.
We have the 4. But what I want to say is that it makes an important point about what unity is. Thinking about the number of midrashim about the lulav and etrog, we sometimes think of unity as a blurring of distinctions. But I think this midrash, as well as a number of other midrashim on 4 in various religious texts, makes the point that unity is not the blurring of distinctions between the subgroups. It's standing together with those other people in
Yeah.
their otherness,
Oh,
that we stand together, even if we disagree, because we know that our community requires a unity of purpose, not necessarily of mind.
yeah. Nice. A unity of purpose and not, and there could be different motivations here. They're going in and these types of people are all, they're going to get to the other side. And that's, we know how it ends. They get to the other side, Vayaminu Badonai of Moshe Avdo, and they have trust in God and in Moses, and the song is sung, at least as it's presented here, and it's a celebration. It's a moment of joy that comes with all sorts of responsibility and things that will go in different directions following the splitting of the sea.
Well, if all goes well, it
Yes.
should prepare us for Revelation.
Indeed.
It
Okay.
should.
Well, with that, we're going to have to just wrap it up. I don't know, Jeremy, if you had a final word there, but we want to first say thank you to you for watching, for listening, and for being with us. If this is your first week, if this is your many weeks into this, we really, really appreciate your being with you, and thank you for your steadfast loyalty and friendship to us. We enjoy sharing Torah with you, and again, wishing for the speedy release of the hostages and the safety for our soldiers, praying for them, and hoping that everyone has a restful and good Shabbat, a quiet Shabbat for Israel. And we hope to see you again next week on the next edition of Parasha Talk. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Right.
Bye-bye.